They say that revenge is a dish best served cold, but anyone who has actually been betrayed, I mean truly soul-shatteringly betrayed, knows that's a lie. Real revenge isn't cold. It's simmering. It's slow-cooked. It requires heat, pressure, and time. Exactly like the oxtail stew my husband was making the night my entire life collapsed. You see, most women, when they find out their husband is cheating, they explode. They scream. They throw vases. They give the man exactly what he wants, a reason to call them crazy. I didn't do that. When I found out the truth, I didn't scream. I set the table. Because if you want to destroy a hypocrite, you don't fight him. You feed him. My husband, Jordan, was standing in the center of our kitchen, humming a soft melody while he tended to the Dutch oven on the stove. We lived in a luxury condo in Buckhead, the kind of place that smells like expensive candles and old money. But that evening, the air was heavy with something else. It was the rich, intoxicating aroma of slow-cooked oxtails, warm and savory, filling every corner of the room. It was the scent of home, of warmth, of the safety I thought I possessed. Jordan was wearing the apron I had given him, a little gag gift he wore with surprising pride, moving with the rhythm of the R&B song he was humming. From where I sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through emails on my tablet, he looked like the perfect husband. He was handsome, composed, and dedicated. He always preached this philosophy to our friends, saying that while he worked hard in his career, cooking for his wife was a privilege, not a chore. I watched the muscles in his back shift as he stirred the stew, and I felt a wave of profound gratitude. I felt lucky. I felt secure in the life we had built together, viewing our success, this condo, our careers, the car in the garage, as a testament to our joint struggle and the love that had carried us through it all. I thought we were a fortress. I didn't know that the walls were already crumbling, and the enemy was already inside the gates. The turning point of a life often doesn't come with an explosion. It comes with a silent notification. While Jordan was busy tending to the stew, focusing on reducing the gravy to perfection, his phone sat on the marble counter, just a few feet away from me. It lay there in silence, a sleek black object that held the power to destroy everything I knew. Suddenly, the screen lit up. It wasn't a call, just a silent banner notification that glowed in the dim kitchen light. My eyes instinctively darted toward it, not out of suspicion, but out of habit. And there it was, a WhatsApp message. The preview was short, just 4 words, but they hit me with the force of a physical blow. "Boss, I miss you." Time seemed to stop. The humming from the stove, the distant traffic of Atlanta, the hum of the refrigerator, it all fell away into a vacuum of silence. I stared at the words. "Boss, I miss you." And then I saw the sender's name, Connie. The realization was instant, sharp, and agonizing. I recognized the name immediately. Connie was the intern. The young, bright-eyed girl fresh out of college who had joined Jordan's department a few months ago. He had mentioned her before, praising her potential, her eagerness to learn. I had even met her once at a company mixer, where she had shaken my hand and smiled with a respect that I now realized was nothing but a mask. That perfect life I was admiring just seconds ago shattered instantly. The luxury condo wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage set for a lie. The man in the apron wasn't my devoted husband. He was a stranger. The pain was immediate, a searing heat in my chest that made me want to gasp for air, but it was quickly replaced by something else, a cold, terrifying clarity. I looked at Jordan's back. He was still humming. He was humming a love song while his mistress texted him that she missed him. The audacity was breathtaking. In that split second, a war raged inside me. The rationalization battled against the rage. I briefly considered screaming. I wanted to grab the heavy ceramic bowl on the counter and smash it against the wall. I wanted to throw his phone into the simmering stew. I wanted to scream until my throat bled, demanding to know why, demanding to know how he could betray us like this. But I stopped myself. I am a 32-year-old professional woman. I am intelligent, composed, and successful. I knew exactly what would happen if I gave in to that impulse. If I made a scene now, if I confronted him with just this one text, he would spin it. He would gaslight me. He would say, "Lauren, baby, you're overreacting. She's just a kid. It's an inside joke. You know how Gen Z talks." He would make me the villain. He would call me insecure, crazy, jealous. And then he would delete the messages, lock down his phone, and take the affair deeper underground. I rejected the typical reaction. I decided right then and there that I didn't just want to fight. I needed a confession. I needed irrefutable proof, something so undeniable that he couldn't talk his way out of it. And more than that, I wanted to expose his hypocrisy. I wanted to strip him of this perfect husband costume he was wearing. Jordan was still facing the stove, chopping some fresh parsley for the garnish. The rhythmic chop 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 of the knife gave me a tempo to steady my racing heart. I stood up, moving quietly. "I'm just going to check the weather," I mumbled, though he couldn't hear me over his humming. I picked up his phone. The screen was dark again. I needed the passcode. My thumb hovered over the digits. It was our anniversary. The irony was so thick I could taste it, metallic and bitter. He used the date of our sacred union to lock away the secrets of his betrayal. I typed in the numbers. The phone unlocked. There was the thread. It wasn't just "I miss you." It was weeks of messages. Photos. Plans. But I didn't have time to read them all. I had to act fast. I had to cross the threshold from the loving wife to the hunter. A dark, dangerous idea formed in my mind. The message said, "Boss, I miss you." She wanted him. She wanted to be with him. Well, I thought, let's give the girl what she wants. My fingers, cold and precise, flew across the keyboard. I replied to the mistress. I typed, "Come over. My wife isn't home today." I stared at the words for a fraction of a second, ensuring they sounded like him. Direct. Urgent. Then I hit send. I watched the check marks turn blue. Read. A moment later, the typing bubble appeared. She was replying. "OMW. Be there in 20. She was coming. I quickly took a screenshot of the exchange, my message and hers. I sent the image to my own phone. Then, with the precision of a surgeon, I deleted the evidence from his phone. I deleted my message inviting her, and I deleted her acceptance. I left the original, "I miss you" there, untouched, so the thread looked undisturbed. I placed the phone back on the counter, exactly where it had been, angled precisely the same way. My hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the commitment I had just made. I had just invited my husband's mistress to our home for dinner. I had turned our sanctuary into a trap. "Everything okay, babe?" Jordan asked, finally turning around. He held up a spoon with a bit of sauce. "Taste this. It's perfect." I looked at him. The transition was complete. I was no longer the wife he thought he knew. I had entered the special world of the story, a high-stakes psychological game where I had to perform normalcy while waiting for the prey to arrive. I walked over to him, a smile plastered on my face that didn't reach my eyes. I tasted the sauce. "It's delicious," I lied. "You've outdone yourself." "I told you," he beamed, turning back to the pot. "Cooking for you is a privilege." The next 20 minutes were a form of silent torture. Jordan served the oxtails, bringing the steaming bowls to the table with a flourish. He was bragging about his effort, talking about how he had let the meat marinate for 24 hours, how he had sourced the best ingredients. He sat down opposite me, his face glowing with self-satisfaction. I looked down at the food. Yesterday, this meal would have been a comfort. Today, it looked like biological waste. I picked up my fork and forced myself to take a bite. I had to eat. I had to maintain the illusion. If I stopped acting the part of the loving wife now, he might get suspicious. He might check his phone. He might see the gap in the messages. I chewed the meat. It was tender, yes, but to me it tasted like ashes. It tasted like poison coated in sugar. Every swallow was a battle against my own nausea. I described it as incredible, while my stomach churned with disgust. "You're quiet tonight," Jordan noted, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Tough day." "Just tired," I said, keeping my voice level. "Long meetings." The clock on the wall seemed to be ticking louder than usual. Tick, tick, tick. Connie was on her way. She was probably in an Uber right now, checking her makeup, thinking she was about to have a thrilling, illicit hookup with her boss in his luxury condo while his wife was away. She had no idea she was walking into a lion's den. Jordan finished his meal with gusto. He was oblivious. He was so wrapped up in his own ego, in his own narrative of being the man who has it all, the career, the wife, the side piece, that he couldn't see the storm gathering directly above his head. "I think I'll clean up later," he said, leaning back and patting his stomach. "Maybe we can watch a movie?" "Actually," I said, standing up and moving to the living room. "I'm not ready for bed yet. Let's just sit for a bit." I sat on the sofa, facing the door. I acted tired, rubbing my temples, but every nerve in my body was wired tight. I was waiting, and in a twisted way, I was enjoying the tension. It was the calm before the slaughter. I watched Jordan move around the kitchen, oblivious, humming that same damn song. He thought he was in control. He thought he was safe. And then it happened. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, cutting through the warm atmosphere like a knife. Jordan froze. He looked at the door, then at his watch. "Who is that?" he asked, confusion wrinkling his forehead. "It's 8:30 on a Tuesday." He looked at me for an answer. I stayed seated, my expression icy calm. "I don't know," I said. "Why don't you get it?" He hesitated. I could see the wheels turning in his head. Was it a delivery? A neighbor? He certainly wasn't expecting her, because in his version of reality, he hadn't invited her. "Probably just Amazon," he muttered, trying to reassure himself. He walked to the door. I stood up silently and followed him, staying just out of sight in the hallway shadows. He unlocked the door and swung it open. And there she was. Connie. I couldn't see her face yet, but I saw Jordan's. His face went pale as a sheet. His eyes bulged. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Hey, boss," I heard a soft, flirtatious voice say. Jordan didn't speak. He couldn't. He was paralyzed. That was my cue. I stepped out from the shadows, walking up behind Jordan until I was standing right next to him. "Who is it, honey?" I asked, my voice dripping with false sweetness. Connie's eyes snapped to mine. She was wearing a trench coat, heels, looking ready for a night of passion. When she saw me, the wife she thought was gone, her face crumbled. She looked terrified. She took a half step back, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. This was the moment. The moment where I could have slammed the door in her face. The moment where I could have started screaming at Jordan. But I didn't. I had a plan. I had a trap to spring, and we were only just getting started. I looked at Connie, this young woman who had the nerve to text my husband in my own kitchen, and I smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. "Connie," I exclaimed, as if I were delighted to see her. What a surprise. I pulled the door open wider, breaking the paralysis that held them both. "Don't stand out there in the hall," I said, my voice commanding. "Come inside. I insist." I looked at Jordan, who was trembling, and then back at the mistress, who was wishing the floor would swallow her whole. "Come in," I repeated, locking eyes with her. "I'll let you keep a shred of dignity." I invited the mistress and the husband into the same room, forcing them into my domain. The trap was sprung. The dinner party was about to begin. And if they thought the oxtails were the only thing getting cooked tonight, they were dead wrong. So here's the question for you. If you caught your partner cheating and had the chance to trap them in a room with their lover, would you scream and kick them out? Or would you do what I did, invite them in, pour them a drink, and psychologically dismantle them over a 3-course meal? Let me know in the comments. And hit that subscribe button, because this is where the real heat gets turned up. I led Connie into the center of the living room and pointed to the single armchair facing the large sofa where Jordan usually sat to watch football. She sat on the edge of the cushion, her back rigid, knees pressed together, looking like a child waiting outside the principal's office. I turned to Jordan and gestured for him to sit. Not on the other armchair. No. I patted the spot right next to me on the sofa. He walked over like a man marching to the gallows. He sat down, leaving a foot of space between us, his body stiff as a board. Even though the thermostat was set to a comfortable 72 degrees, I could see beads of sweat forming on his temples. He looked at Connie, then at the floor, then anywhere but at me. "So," I said, clapping my hands together softly. "Introductions." I pointed to the trembling girl. "Jordan, this is Connie, the intern you've been mentoring so diligently. The one who was kind enough to rush over here at 8:30 at night." Then I turned to Connie. "And Connie, this is Jordan, my husband. The man who, up until about an hour ago, I thought was the most honest, loyal partner a woman could ask for." The silence that followed was heavy, thick enough to choke on. Connie shot a pleading look at Jordan, begging him with her eyes to say something, to explain, to save her. But Jordan was a coward. He stared at his knees, picking at a loose thread on his jeans, refusing to meet her gaze. That was the first cut. She realized in that moment that the powerful boss she admired was just a terrified little man scared of his wife. "I'm going to get us some drinks," I announced, standing up. "Connie, what would you like? Juice? Tea? Water?" "Water is fine," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I smiled warmly. "Coming right up." I walked into the kitchen, making sure to clang the cabinets a little, so they knew I was listening. I reached into the cupboard. My hand hovered over the Waterford crystal glasses, the heavy, expensive ones we used for dinner parties. I bypassed them. Instead, I reached for the bottom shelf and pulled out a sleeve of cheap, crinkly disposable plastic cups, the kind you use for a child's birthday party or a barbecue. I filled the flimsy plastic cup with tap water. Then I took down 2 of our finest china teacups, the ones with the delicate gold rims, and poured steaming hot tea for Jordan and myself. I walked back into the living room. I placed the fine china in front of Jordan. I kept one for myself. And then, with a gracious smile, I set the wobbly plastic cup down in front of Connie. The symbolism hit the table harder than a gavel. On the glass surface, the difference was stark. The gold-rimmed china represented us, permanent, valuable, established. The plastic cup represented her, cheap, disposable, temporary. Connie stared at the cup, her face flushing a deep, humiliated red. She understood. I didn't have to call her a name. I just had to serve her water. I sat back down, and this time, I didn't leave a gap. I slid right up to Jordan, pressing my thigh against his. I reached out and took his arm, draping my hands over his bicep, leaning my head on his shoulder. I felt him flinch, his muscles rock hard with tension, but he didn't dare pull away. "So, Connie," I said, keeping my tone light and conversational, "tell me about the internship. Is Jordan a good boss? He can be so demanding sometimes, I know. I hope he's not working you too hard." She stammered, her eyes darting between the plastic cup and my hand claiming ownership of her lover's arm. He's a good teacher. I've learned a lot." "That's wonderful," I said, squeezing Jordan's arm. "He's always been so generous with his time. Isn't that right, honey?" Jordan made a noise that sounded like a strangled grunt. "We were just talking about our vacation," I lied smoothly, shifting the conversation to the weaponized future. "We're going to St. Lucia next month. We booked the Jade Mountain Resort. Have you heard of it? It's breathtaking. Private infinity pools, no fourth wall, just open ocean." I looked at Connie, whose eyes were glazing over with tears. "And we're finally closing on the lake house in Blue Ridge," I continued, twisting the knife. "We went to see it last week. It's perfect. 4 bedrooms. My parents are so excited. They've even offered to chip in $15,000 for the renovations as a gift for their future grandchildren." At the word grandchildren, Jordan stopped breathing. I felt his chest seize up against my shoulder. I knew this was his weak point. We had been trying to time it right, waiting for financial stability. "Next year is the year, right, babe?" I asked, looking up at Jordan with wide, adoring eyes. "We decided 2024 is the perfect time to start a family. I'm hoping for a boy first." I turned back to Connie. "Don't you think that's a wonderful plan? A baby changes everything. It really cements a marriage, makes it unbreakable." Connie looked like she was going to be sick. Her hands were shaking so badly she knocked the plastic cup, spilling a little water on the table. She scrambled to wipe it up with her sleeve. It sounds nice," she managed to choke out. "I'm sure you'll be very happy." "Oh, we are," I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. "Because we have a foundation. We have assets. We have a history. We have a future. Some things, some people, they're just passing through. Like tourists. But a marriage? That's residency." She shrank into the chair. She realized she was completely excluded. The vacation, the house, the kids, it was a fortress she could never breach. She was just a distraction, a toy he played with when he was bored. But I was the architect of his life. I decided it was time to escalate the humiliation. I pointed to the bowl of fruit on the coffee table. "Jordan, honey," I said, "slice some apples for our guest. Where are your manners?" He jumped up like a puppet on a string, grateful for a task that allowed him to move away from me. He grabbed a knife and started slicing an apple. His hands were shaking so much the slices were jagged and uneven. The man who prided himself on his knife skills couldn't even cut a piece of fruit without trembling. He put the plate down. I picked up a fork, stabbed a slice of apple, and held it up to his lips. "Open up," I commanded softly. He hesitated. He looked at Connie, then at the fork. "Eat it," I whispered. He opened his mouth. I fed him the fruit, watching him chew and swallow. It was an intimate act, a mother feeding a child, or a master feeding a pet. It was a display of dominance. Then I pushed the same plate toward Connie. "You have some too," I said. "They're Honeycrisp. Very sweet." She looked at the apple slice Jordan had just chewed, then at the plate. She looked at me. She realized what I was doing. I was forcing her to participate in our intimacy, reducing her to a spectator of our domestic life. She shook her head, terrified. "No, thank you," she murmured. The silence returned, but now it was vibrating. Connie, desperate to break the tension, desperate to act like a normal human being, made a fatal mistake. She looked at Jordan and asked, "Boss, how is your stomach doing? Does it hurt less?" She turned to me, trying to be polite. "I heard he was sick. My mom sends me this black garlic honey from the south. It's great for stomach aches. I can bring some in if it helps." The air left the room. Jordan's face went gray. He started shaking his head frantically at her, his eyes wide with panic. But it was too late. The trap had snapped shut. I let out a laugh. It was a dry, sharp sound like a branch snapping in winter. "Wow," I said, leaning forward. "You sure do worry about your boss, Connie. Look at that. I live with him. I sleep in the same bed with him. And I didn't know his stomach was hurting." I locked eyes with her. "How do you know about his stomach, Connie? Does he complain about it at the office? Or do you see him outside of the office?" Her face went from red to paper white. I just assumed. I saw him rubbing his stomach." I whipped my head toward Jordan. "And you? Why are you telling your intern about your tummy aches? The other night, Thursday, you said you were late because of a client dinner and that something you ate disagreed with you." I looked back at Connie. I see now what kind of client dinner that was. Connie looked like she wanted to vanish. She realized she had just exposed him. She had just confirmed they were together that night. "The world is so complicated these days," I sighed, pulling my phone out of my pocket and setting it on the table. "My girlfriends tell me young girls these days are so bold. They send messages to married men like they're texting their boyfriends. No shame." I picked up the phone. "Jordan, you know what? Just before you started cooking, I saw a message pop up on your phone. From a Connie. It said, 'Boss, I miss you.'" The room went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator. "Some nerve, right?" I continued, my voice hardening into steel. "Sending 'I miss you' to a man while his wife is sitting 3 feet away." Connie started to shake. I. And then, I said, smiling that terrifying smile again. I saw the reply. "Come over. My wife isn't home today." Connie nodded, tears spilling over. "Yes," he said. "He didn't say that." I cut her off. I leaned in close. "I sent that." Connie gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. Jordan let out a moan of despair and buried his face in his hands. "Did you think I was an idiot?" I hissed. "Did you think I was some docile housewife who wouldn't notice?" I saw the text. I unlocked the phone. "I invited you here. I set the stage. And you walked right into it." I have to go," Connie stammered, grabbing her purse. She stood up, knocking the chair back. "I'm sorry. I have to go." She scrambled toward the door, practically running. I didn't stop her. I followed her to the hallway, watching her fumble with her shoes. "Connie," I called out. She froze. "Next time," I whispered, "call first. And remember, the wife isn't always gone." She fled. The elevator doors closed on her sobbing figure. One down. I closed the door and locked it. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I turned back to the living room. Jordan was still sitting on the sofa, head in his hands, crying. I walked over to the table. I picked up his phone, the device that held all his secrets. I looked at it, then at him. And with a primal scream of rage, I smashed it against the glass coffee table. Crack! Shards of glass and plastic flew everywhere. Jordan flinched, terrified. "Explain yourself," I screamed. "Baby, please," he sobbed, falling to his knees. "It meant nothing. It was a mistake. She came on to me. I was weak." "Weak," I scoffed. I walked to my purse and pulled out the file I had been compiling. I threw the papers in his face. They fluttered down around him like snow. "Is this weakness?" I pointed to a bank statement. $1,500. A birthday gift. You gave me flowers. You gave her $1,500. Is this weakness? I threw a photo of a movie ticket. Thursday night. While I was waiting for you with dinner. Is this weakness? I threw the plastic bag containing the long, dyed brown hair I found in his car. He looked at the evidence surrounding him. He realized there was no lie he could tell. I knew everything. I had known for days. He started begging. He grabbed my legs, weeping, promising to change, promising to quit his job, promising to do anything. I felt nothing. The love I had for him was gone, replaced by a cold disgust. I walked into the kitchen. The oxtail stew was still sitting on the stove, cooling. The smell, once delicious, now made me want to vomit. I grabbed the heavy pot. I walked to the trash can. "Jordan, look at me," I said. He looked up, eyes red and swollen. "My love for you is like this stew," I said calmly. "Once it's contaminated, it's garbage." I tilted the pot. The meat, the gravy, the vegetables. All of it slid into the trash with a wet, sickening slap. I dropped the pot in the sink with a clang. I went to the bedroom and grabbed the suitcase I had packed earlier. I wheeled it out to the living room. Jordan was still on the floor, surrounded by the debris of his double life. I reached into my bag and pulled out one last piece of paper. I slapped it onto the coffee table. "That is a promissory note," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "For the $40,000 my parents lent us for the renovation. You remember that?" He nodded dumbly. "When you sell this place, because you will sell it, you can't afford it alone, you pay them first. Then we split the rest." "Lauren, please," he whispered. "Don't leave." I looked at him one last time. The perfect husband. The hypocrite. "Goodbye, Jordan." I walked out the door and didn't look back. The Uber ride to my best friend's apartment was a blur of city lights and cold silence. I didn't cry. The tears had evaporated, replaced by a crystalline, sharp determination. I was heading to Lysandra's place. Lysandra isn't just a friend. She's a shark in a blazer, a high-powered attorney who specializes in asset disputes and, frankly, destroying the lives of people who deserve it. I had texted her 2 words when I left the condo. "It's done." She was waiting for me in the lobby. She didn't ask questions. She just hugged me, a tight, fierce squeeze, and took my suitcase. We went up to her apartment, which smelled of lemongrass and justice. She poured me a glass of wine, sat me down, and said, "Okay, you broke his heart. Now let's break his bank account. You see, divorce was my liberation, but true justice? True justice required total war." We decided that night that we weren't just going to end the marriage. We were going to dismantle the very thing Jordan valued more than me, more than Connie, more than anything, his reputation. The weekend passed in a flurry of activity. We didn't spend it weeping over wedding albums. We spent it compiling a 10-megabyte PDF file. We called it the whistleblower report. I had the evidence. I had the bank statements. Remember those client dinners? I cross-referenced them with his company expense reports. He had been charging his dates with Connie to the corporate card. He had been expensing Ubers to her apartment. He had been buying gifts for clients that were actually jewelry for his mistress. It wasn't just infidelity. It was embezzlement. It was fraud. Lysandra helped me draft the email. We used professional, objective language. No emotion, just cold, hard facts. The subject line read, "Report on internal code of conduct violation and misappropriation of company funds." The attachments included timestamps, receipts, and screenshots of the messages where he admitted to skipping work to be with her. Monday morning arrived. The sky was a slate gray, matching the mood of what was about to happen. At 9 a.m. sharp, the time when the corporate world is just settling in with its coffee, I sat at Lysandra's computer. The recipient list was short but lethal. The CEO, the head of HR, and the legal department. My finger hovered over the mouse. I thought about the oxtail stew in the trash. I thought about the "I miss you" text. I thought about the 6 years of my life he had wasted. "Goodbye, Jordan," I whispered. Click. Sent. The arrow was loose. There was no calling it back. According to a friend who still works in the building, the fallout was immediate and nuclear. By 10 a.m., Jordan was called into a conference room. He walked in looking arrogant, probably expecting a promotion or a project update. Instead, he found the HR director and a legal representative waiting for him with a thick folder, my folder. They laid it all out. The theft, the time fraud, the inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. Jordan tried to stutter a denial, but you can't deny receipts. You can't deny the GPS data I pulled from the shared car account. He turned pale as wax. At 10:30 a.m., 2 security guards approached his desk. They handed him a cardboard box. In front of the entire open plan office, in front of the peers he had bragged to, in front of the people he tried to impress, he was escorted out of the building. He wasn't just fired, he was terminated for cause. No severance. No reference. Just a walk of shame through the lobby, carrying a box of desk toys while everyone whispered. Connie's fate was swift, too. She was called in right after. Dishonorable discharge from the internship program. In the corporate world, news travels faster than light. She was branded. The ambitious intern, who slept with the boss and helped him steal company funds? Her reputation was dead before her career even started. She cleared her desk in tears, ostracized by the very colleagues she used to flirt with. She deleted her social media that afternoon and, from what I heard, moved back to her parents' house in the suburbs by the end of the week. But the real crushing blow for Jordan wasn't the job. It was the math. Without his high salary, the house of cards he had built collapsed instantly. The mortgage on the luxury condo was massive. The car note was astronomical. And the credit card bills from his lavish lifestyle were coming due. My phone started blowing up. First, it was begging. "Lauren, please undo this. You ruined me. We can fix this." Then, when I didn't answer, it turned to rage. "You heartless witch. You vindictive crazy woman." I didn't block him. I silenced the notifications and archived them. Every text was just more evidence for the lawyers. 2 months later, we met in court for the settlement hearing. Jordan looked like he had aged 10 years. He was unshaven, wearing a suit that looked a little too big for him now. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The division of assets was the final battle. He wanted to keep the condo. It was his pride and joy, the symbol of his status. He proposed a payment plan to buy me out. I laughed. Actually laughed in the mediation room. "You have no job, Jordan," Lysandra said, her voice cutting like a razor. "You have no income. And you have a massive debt." She slid the promissory note across the table. The $40,000 my parents had lent us. "This is a marital debt," Lysandra explained. "But since it was a loan from Lauren's parents, it needs to be repaid immediately upon the dissolution of the marriage." Jordan looked at the paper. He looked at his lawyer, who just shrugged. He didn't have $40,000. He didn't have $40. "We sell the condo," I said firmly. "We sell it fast. We pay off the mortgage, we pay back my parents, and we split whatever scraps are left. That's the deal." He had no choice. He signed the papers with a shaking hand. The condo sold below market value for a quick cash closing. After the bank took their cut and my parents got their check, there was almost nothing left. Jordan walked out of that courthouse with no wife, no job, no house, no car, and a reputation so toxic he'd have to move to another state to get hired. He stood on the courthouse steps, looking lost, holding a briefcase that contained nothing but paperwork of his failure. I walked past him, my heels clicking on the pavement, and got into a waiting cab. I didn't look back. The victory wasn't in the money. It was in the freedom. I used my share of the sale to buy a new place. It's not a penthouse in Buckhead. It's a smaller, quieter condo in a neighborhood full of trees. It doesn't smell like oxtails and lies. It smells like fresh linen and peace. I decorated it for me. No leather couches. No massive TVs. Just soft colors, books, and plants. Tonight, I'm sitting on my balcony with Lysandra. We're drinking wine. The good stuff, not the cheap swill Jordan used to buy to pretend he was cultured. The city lights are twinkling in the distance. My phone buzzes. It's a notification. My direct deposit just hit. I got promoted to team lead today. Turns out, when you aren't managing a grown man's ego and doing his laundry, you have a lot more energy to focus on your career. I open my DMs. There's a message from a woman I don't know. Lysandra had shared my story anonymously on a forum a few weeks ago. The message reads, "I read what you did. I was scared to leave my husband, but reading your story gave me the strength to pack my bags. Thank you." I smile, taking a sip of wine. The liquid is dark and rich. It tastes like victory. I turn my pain into power. I turn my betrayal into a weapon. And Jordan, he's probably somewhere heating up a microwave dinner, wondering how the hell the docile wife he ignored became the hurricane that leveled his life. So, to anyone listening who feels trapped, who feels disrespected, who thinks they have to endure betrayal to keep the peace, you don't. You can set the table. You can serve the tea. And when the time is right, you can burn it all down and warm your hands by the fire. I'm Lauren. I'm 32. I'm single, I'm successful, and I am finally truly free. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed watching a cheater get exactly what he deserved, hit that like button and subscribe. There are plenty more stories where that came from. See you in the next one.